Hey friends, welcome back. It sure has been a while since I've sat down and chatted about my fiber crafts. There's been a lot going on where I live, and naturally that takes up a lot of brain space for me. Despite not having the energy to show up here, I have been hyper-focused on the various projects I have going on, and the amount of things that I have to show you are really starting to stack up. So today I just wanted to catch you all up on everything I've been working on these past couple of months. Starting with this sweater that I'm wearing right here. It is my first finished object of 2026, and it is the Dagmar jacket by Petite. If you're a regular around here, this is definitely not the first time you have seen this sweater. I have been planning for it and talking about it for the last almost 2 years now. I started this project about a year and a half ago when I bought a new spinning wheel, and since then I have spun up all of the yarn, and I cast this on, I would say, last fall, and was able to finish it just right off the bat in January. And I've probably already worn it like at least 15 times. I think it's a neutral enough sweater where I can get away with wearing it over and over again. And it does act kind of like a jacket too. So I can wear it as kind of the main piece, or I can layer it on top of whatever outfit I'm wearing for that day. I used 3 different colorways of fiber from Onero Gare. Like I said, I purchased the fiber about a year and a half ago, and they were all very neutral colors that together created this very beautiful beigey mauve colorway that has like a slight tonal heatherness to it. And I spun it up as a 3-ply because I knew that I wanted to knit a cable style jacket with this yarn, so I wanted it to be very bouncy to make the cables pop on whatever project I ended up choosing for it. I knit a size 4 in this garment, and usually I kind of hover between the 4 and 5 range for petite knit sizes, but I'm really happy that I went with the 4 because I still have a ton of positive ease, so I can really layer up underneath this jacket if I choose to, but it's still comfortable to wear it just with like a t-shirt underneath as well. It's hard to continue to go on and on about this sweater because I feel like I've been talking about it for a year and a half now, and it starts to feel like I'm beating a dead horse with it. So if you're interested in the process of me making this sweater, then I definitely suggest kind of going back to the recent videos that I've been making, even up until a year and a half ago when I started spinning the yarn for it. I also need to shout out this beanie that I'm wearing because I haven't worn it in a long time, especially not on this channel here. This is, I guess, another petite knit pattern. It's the Hipster beanie, and I used a Madeline Tosh yarn that I think was collabing with Hedgehog fibers, maybe. They were doing a collab with another yarn company where they took all of the leftover scraps and made kind of these rainbow Tweety bits in with the yarn. And I think it turned out really pretty, and it just feels like a nice, lighter weight, springy color beanie to wear this time of year, because I haven't said it yet, but I am definitely fully in spring mode despite it still looking and feeling a little bit like winter here, but I am just ready to move on into the warmer temps and just see all the colors of spring. And since I don't have that quite yet, I am just going to wear all of the colors that I want to see. So let's jump into everything else. I have quite a bit of knitting to show and spinning as well. And I also started a brand new to me fiber craft that I haven't tried before, but I am immediately hooked on it. I have 2 more finished knitting objects to show you. This first one is a garment that you had never seen before. I only cast it on in January and have already finished it. And it's for another year of blue sky making that I am doing for Blue Sky Fibers. This is my third consecutive year being a blue sky maker, which, if you're unfamiliar, is a yarn brand that has several different bases, all made within the US. And each year they have a group of makers that try out all different yarn bases, and mostly everybody makes knitting patterns with them, but I just make knitting projects from other designers. So each year they have provided yarn support for me to make 2 projects to share with everybody and kind of my thoughts on each yarn base. So each year I try to choose a different yarn base that I haven't tried before, because why not try all of the yarn bases if I have the opportunity to do so. For a while now, I know that I have wanted a knit vest, but I've also been really wanting to knit with like a wool cotton blend of yarn. I still really want to make a full sleeve sweater with this type of base, but I'm really happy with the vest that I've made so far. This is the Bitsalmoon Aran Vest by Sedna Knitting. And I have not knit with any pattern by Sedna Knitting before. I just knew that I wanted a cable knit vest, so I did all of the filters on Ravelry and came down to this one. And I just love all of the intricate cable knits throughout this entire sweater. Apparently I've been on a big cable knitting streak, because I knit this and then I immediately jumped into the vest. And once I finished this vest, I jumped into another cable knit garment that I will show you in a little bit here. I have been meaning to make a vest for a while. I have made one pullover vest and I think one button-up vest. But this one I just feel like is going to be a lot more wearable because it's made in just a very neutral cream color. This is the second white knit garment I've ever made for myself, and I realized that I need more lighter sweaters in my wardrobe. I have a lot of dark colored sweaters, but not a lot of light sweaters, and I really like to wear lighter colors after the new year. And so that is why I went with this particular color. And so I forgot to mention that this is the sweater base from Blue Sky, which is a merino and cotton blend, and it's in a worsted weight. Now, I know this pattern is Aran, and I think it called for Aran yard would be my guess, but I was able to get gauge with using the worsted weight, which is really similar to Aran in my opinion, so that wasn't an issue for me at all. I ended up knitting a medium size, which would have given me a 12 centimeters of positive ease, and the pattern called for 5 to 10 centimeters of positive ease, but I knew that I wanted this to be a bit more oversized so I can layer it on top of slightly bulkier items, because I don't really have a lot of t-shirts that are really tight fitting, and so I need to be able to wear my looser fit t-shirts underneath comfortably. Otherwise, it's just going to scrunch up weird and not lay nicely on my body. Now, this does lead me into a little bit of a spontaneous giveaway. When I first chose the yarn color, I for sure wanted this creamy, I think this colorway is called Ice Cream, and I specifically chose this shade of white because it was a bit more warm and subtle in tone, which I think looks great with my skin tone. I kind of lean more of a warmer skin tone, but they accidentally sent me the wrong shade of white. They sent me Igloo, which is a very stark white yarn that I think is just a little too contrasty to go with my skin tone. It's just not the right shade of white for me, in my opinion. And so instead of sending the yarn back to them, I thought maybe it would be a fun idea to have a giveaway of this yarn to one of you lovely viewers, and they agreed that that would be a good idea. So if you would like to enter to win 5 skeins of this sweater, which I think they're 50 grams each. No, they're 100 grams. So 500 grams of yarn. And the way that I'm going to do this giveaway is for you all to let me know what you would potentially knit with this yarn if you got it, and just comment it down below. And in the next video, I will announce the winner. So just so you all know, I'm never going to comment the winner. I'm not going to ask for credit card information or anything. You're going to hear it directly from my mouth on my channel in the next video. So let me know what you would want to knit with this, and you could get all of this lovely yarn. I have one more finished object to show you. At the beginning of this year, I feel like this happens to me every year, and I kind of panic over the amount of scrap yarn that I have and the fact that I don't really have a plan for it other than a couple of blankets that I'm making that I probably am going to be making for the rest of my life, honestly. But yeah, I still have other scrap yarn that kind of builds up, and without actively knitting on it all the time, it's just going to continue to build up. And so I'm really trying to hone in on using up all of that scrap yarn. And I think one of the easiest ways to use up scrap yarn is by making socks, and specifically colorwork socks. So I made these. They're a little interesting because they aren't a perfect match. These are the Taimi socks by Ronja Hakalehto, and this is in the issue of Amarisu that I have, which is issue 26 from Spring/Summer 2023. I've had this book for quite a while, and it is full of patterns that I want to make. This is one of those publications where I genuinely want to make every single item that I see in the book. I'm just slowly making my way to get through all of that. But I thought these would be a fun pair of socks because it's all over color work, and I knew eventually I was going to run out of the yarn, but I decided to just continue to knit even as I ran out of the colors here. And I eventually had to swap out and do like a light gray color in it. But the reality is, you're not often going to see this part of my foot. These are mostly going to be sticking out a pair of clogs or boots, and you would never even know that this little section exists. I ended up using this, like some unconventional sock yarn for these socks. Like 5 or 6 years ago, I ended up making a pair of colorwork socks from Sari Nordland using finool, which is Rama finool. And that isn't like traditional sock yarn in the sense of superwash merino with nylon base like we see in a lot of sock yarns. There's no nylon or plastic or anything, and these are made with non-superwash yarn. And you probably would think like, oh, they're gonna fall apart so quick, but I must say the socks that I have that are knit very woolen with like woolly yarn are some of my longest wearing socks, and they're just so warm, which I desperately need here, especially at work because my work is extremely cold. And the other thing that I really like with knitting from this woolly yarn is it's a lot stretchier, more elastic than sock yarn. And so I have been burned so many times in the past by not being able to fit a colorwork sock over my foot. But with this being a lot bigger and stretchier, it just slips over my foot like a glove. And I think that's just kind of the key to me knitting colorwork socks, is I'm always going to have to use more yarn like this. I kind of like the challenge of being limited in the colors that I have to choose, because if I were to buy this yarn online, I probably never would have chosen these 3 colors together. It's a little hard to see. It kind of comes off as like a gray, but this is more of like a minty gray. And then this is like a reddish orange color, and then a dark navy, which I think created really nice contrast throughout the sock. I also did end up making a few mistakes in the color work chart just because I wasn't paying attention, but I ended up mimicking the exact mistakes on the second pair of socks kind of in this region, so you wouldn't really even know that it was a mistake unless you were knitting it yourself. I was like maybe down here before I noticed that the mistake was up here, and at that point I just wanted to keep on going with it. And I just think it makes them a little bit more unique in their own. I immediately moved on to another Scrappy sock using this similar sock base, because again, if I'm not always working on my scrap yarn, it's just gonna pile up. And I got inspired to knit a second pair of socks using the same colorwork pattern as the Bi-Stripe beanie by James and Watts. I knit that a few years ago in the past, and I just really like the use of all of the different colors. You can use like 3 to 9 different colors with this particular color work chart, and so that's why I thought it would make a really nice scrappy sock. And here is what I have made so far. They look quite a bit smaller comparative to these right here, but these fit my feet like perfectly snug, and you can see how these are a bit bigger. So I ended up using a 68 stitch cast on as opposed to a 72 with the other socks. And yeah, so I just used this stitch pattern throughout and cast on from the top and did a 2x2 rib. And I've been really liking the afterthought heel for when I'm doing any type of color work sock pattern, because it's just like a really easy way to continue the color work pattern without have to like figuring out how you're gonna break it off for the heel and continue. It's just a lot easier for me to kind of figure that out. So I finished this first pair this week, and now I just need to cast on the second pair before I get second sock syndrome. But now, as we're kind of getting more into like springtime, I'm probably going to stop with the woolly socks for a little bit and try to get through the regular sock yarn stash that I have. I mentioned earlier that I have been very cable obsessed lately, and that I cast on another garment for cables, and that is yet another project that I feel like I've been beating a dead horse with. It's the Medokvit by Teti Lutsak. I believe the last time we chatted I had made the swatch for it, but now I finally cast on the sweater. It's a little interesting to show it off because it's a modular sweater, so you knit it in all of these different pieces that kind of build off of each other, which is a little bit different than what I'm used to for knitting sweaters, but it makes it very fun. So I have the first cable front panel piece, and there's going to be color work that kind of borders around this piece here. And then I started knitting the back panel piece of it as well. And I don't really have a ton to say quite yet about this. I did meet gauge, and so I'm just using the recommended needle size. And I'm making this in a size 4 as well. This also is some hand spun yarn using some fiber that I bought at the Shepherd's Harvest Festival last year. It was the first like bag of fleece that I've ever purchased. It was pre-washed, but I've been processing it myself with hand carders. I'm not gonna lie, I am getting so sick of using hand carders to process this whole fleece because that's a lot of work for manual labor, and I feel like one day I really want to save up to get a drum carder. But I'm probably going to have to finish processing the rest of this wool on the hand carders before I get to the point where I can get a drum carder. But that's okay because I like the slow act of it. The only thing I don't really like is it really starts to hurt my wrists after a while, so I can only really do it in short bouts. The contrasting color that I'm using with this is some other handspun fiber that I got from the same festival last year as well, in this indigo dyed colorway. And I think the two together will make like a really nice high contrast, and I just think it's going to be really pretty. I love the way this natural CVM looks, and I kind of actually like that it has a little more gray tones in the natural colorway. I usually strive away from gray because it really depresses me as a color, but I'm trying to kind of get over that and keep my mind open. And so these two together are kind of giving off like gray, cool tones, which I suppose I could use more of in my closet. I do have an update to another project that I started about a year ago, which is the Highline Henley by Tori. And I have recently started knitting part 1 of 2 sleeves. And on camera, there's like a really thick stripe right here, which looks kind of weird. But in person, it doesn't look as weird. You see that? It does. I don't see that in person. But anyways, so like I said, I started this about a year ago. I have had the body finished, I think, since this fall, and I've just been so distracted on other projects. I feel like I have a lot of whips going on right now, but I really want to get this finished. And part of I use this like trick, I guess. It's not a trick. But this way to help me get through all of my knitting is to knit 1 skein of yarn at a time. So I'm going to work on this until I go through 1 full skein of yarn, and then I move on to the next project and I knit a full skein of yarn on that project. And I just keep rotating through, and it kind of helps me just continue on with projects, especially whips that have been on the needles for quite some time. And so I just recently finished the red color here, like a full skein of that, and have moved on to another project. But yeah, I just wanted to share that I am getting somewhere with this. And as a refresher, I did modify this a little bit. This Henley here actually uses like normal stripes, but when I made the swatch, I really liked the reverse side of it. I thought it gave a much softer stripe. I don't like when stripes are a little too harsh, I guess. And so I decided to adapt the sweater with it being on the reverse side instead of the stripe side. And the yarn that I'm using is some DK weight non-superwash that I naturally dyed myself, which again, this is another one of those projects that I've been talking about for years and years because I finally got around to using the yarn. But this red color here, I dyed with natural pigments that I got from Maewa School of Textiles. It's a Canadian company. And the pigments that I used for this was Madder and Kutch. And I think the pigments I used for this was Eupatorium. And together, I just thought the colors looked really nice. They give a little bit of a nautical feel, which again would be really nice to finish for this spring because I always get into a little bit of a nautical vibe every spring. But yeah, I just have a sleeve and a half to go. I think I could probably get it done pretty soon here. Now, my obsession with using up scrap yarn did not stop at just knitting. Knitting's probably one of the slowest ways to use up scrap yarn, so I've been really trying to think outside of the box to see other ways that I could use up scrap yarn. And I recently tried out a entirely new fiber art. Let's go see what I've been up to. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to try out a tufting kit from a brand called ClawLab. I was at the height of brainstorming ways to use up my scrappy yarn when they reached out to me and asked if I wanted to try the tufting kit. I thought it would be a great way to use up yarn that I had no planned project for. I have never used a tufting gun before, but I have been familiar with it and always love to see what others are making. It was nice to receive a kit that had everything I would need to get started, including some yarn to practice with. I was pleasantly surprised with the quality of the tools and even more amazed with how tight the fabric could get on the frame. Using the tufting gun was a little tricky at first, but once I figured out the hang of it, I was able to get going on the projects I had in mind. I really liked the idea of making quilt blocks to start out because I figured the geometric patterns would be easy to draw on the fabric and fill in with the yarn. ClawLab is offering a discount of 10% off for my audience by using the code Brook-AFF or by following the link in the description below. As you saw, I made some quilt blocks with the yarn that they sent to really just practice the tufting gun and get a hang of it because I knew I wasn't going to be great at it right off the bat. I still am not great at it, but it's a lot of fun to play around with. And so I made these two quilt blocks, this one right here, and then this one. My plan with these two quilt blocks are to make some pillow covers that I think I'll give to my nieces because these colors, they're like a little too vibrant for what I like in my house, but I think my nieces will really get a kick out of it. I still had a bit of the tufting fabric left over, and like I mentioned, I wanted to use this to use up some scrap yarn that I have in my stash, and it's certainly a fast way to use up the yarn. I ended up making an ugly little rug, so be nice when you look at it, but my plan was for this to just go into my closet. I have a couple of electrical cords that run across it, and I'm just going to lay this on top of the cords so my feet don't have to step on it all the time. But I wanted to use the same quilt motif and shrink it down to make a bunch of mini ones. And again, be nice, but here's what I have. It's a little crazy. I think it ended up being too detailed of a pattern for what the gun could really do. And I think we know by now I am not a perfectionist by any means. So that's why this isn't perfect, but it's like abstract, I guess. And it used up yarn that I had no plans for. And now I have this cute, ugly little rug that really only I will see. But I have learned a few things with using the tufting gun. The first one is that you really want to have a lot of slack with the yarn that you're using. Otherwise, it won't actually go. And the other really important thing is to use a thick enough yarn. I think part of the reason why this turned out as crazy as it is because I used yarn that was just like too thin for the gun. Really, I think you should be using like a chunky weight or thicker. And I did find that the blown style yarn makes for a beautiful tuft fabric. So like this white here, it's really hard to tell. But this tan here too, this yarn really blooms. It's a single ply. It doesn't really have a high twist to it. So I think it just blooms really nicely and takes up the space really well. I still have a bit more of that blown style yarn, so I think I might try my hand again at like another area rug or make some pillow covers for my couch or who knows. But I'm definitely gonna try out the tufting gun some more. And I just thought it was nice to be bad at something again and be like a newbie at something. I feel like it's really good for my brain to keep exercising the creative muscle in different ways. And so, yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. So thank you, ClawLab, again for sending me the tufting kit. I think it was an awesome way to try out different ways to use up my yarns. I have been spinning quite a bit this year. I never get sick of spinning. Every single year, I end up getting a subscription of some kind that's fiber related. So in the years past, I've done fiber clubs from like one dyer 2 years in a row. And then last year I did Farmer Daughter Fiber Sock Squad. So I did a sock yarn subscription. And this year I decided to do a fiber club again because I'm starting to kind of catch up on spinning the fiber that I have in stash. And this particular one really piqued my interest. It's the La Mercerie fiber club. I forget the name of the actual fiber club, but what they do is they take a different dyer each month and send out their fiber. So it's kind of a really nice way, I think, to explore new to me dyers. So far, the first 2 months, I haven't even heard of these dyers, but I absolutely loved the braids that they dyed up. And furthermore, I really like the skein of yarn that I've made with it. So I already spun up January's, and I'm going to attempt to stay on top of these fiber clubs on a monthly basis. I'm actually already behind on February, but since it's just one braid, it's pretty quick to catch up on. But January's was so beautiful. It is from a company called Skein in the Stitch, and the colorway was Winter Light. I thought these colors were just so beautiful. They reminded me exactly of a winter sunset with all of the pastel colors mixed with like the warm, soft colors in the sky, which is perfect for the name of it being Winter Light. And this particular fiber is 50% Rambouillet, 33% Kent Romney, 17% Cornwall, and it's about 4 ounces. This particular dyer is based out of the UK too, so I definitely would check out their website again because I just thought this colorway was gorgeous. I really don't have any kind of plan of what I'm going to use up these skeins with or what I'm going to make out of these skeins. I just really like the joy of spinning them without like having a plan in mind. And so I'll show you February's colorway because I'm certainly not going to spoil anything since by the time this video comes out, it's probably going to be March. But the February colorway is from a company called Long Dog Yarn, and the colorway definitely speaks to me quite a bit. Very earthy green. These are like all of my favorite natural colors here. And the color of this is the Rehearsal of the Ballet, and it's a Rambouillet silk blend. So this will be the next thing that I spin up on my wheel. I decided that I'm going to spin them all as a fractal 3-ply as long as they make sense with the braid. And yeah, that's just my favorite yarn to knit with that I spin as a 3-ply. I've been doing a lot of chain ply yarns, which makes more of the gradient colorway, which I think is really pretty, but I don't know. I'm in the mood to spin these as a fractal, which kind of gives that barber pole more of a blended color throughout the skein. I have 2 more skeins to show you that I just finished up this week actually. And originally I spun these up to knit the Jaunty Shawl by Andrea Maury for her Spin It to Knit It make along. And I'm starting to second guess if this yarn is what I want to use for it, but I'll just go ahead and show you. So this first skein here, is from fiber that I bought at that fiber festival last spring in Lake Almo. And it's just this gorgeous brown with a little bit of like a minty heathering in it. And I spun this up as a 3-ply on my spinning wheel. And then to pair with it, I blended a braid of fiber with some silk that I had, and I spun this up on my spindles, and I just plied it all up last night. The original braid was all different greens from minty to olive to kind of a turquoisey color, and I saw some orange silk, like peachy silk that I had sitting next to it, and I thought the combo would be really pretty together. And so then it has some hints of this orange silk in it. And I thought these two colors really complemented each other really well, because this had like the darker copper tone with hints of the turquoise, and this was more of a turquoise green undertone with the hints of the warm tone. So I thought they like complemented really well, which I still think would make a really pretty jaunty, but I kind of really like seeing these colors next to each other. And if I made a 2-color jaunty shawl, it would just be one color on each side, I believe. So I wouldn't really see them working together next to each other. And like I mentioned earlier with that Emerisu magazine that I have, there's a shawl in here that I keep looking at, and I actually originally had planned to knit this up with some other yarn that I have in stash, which I might still do that, but I also think this yarn that I currently have might work really well with this yarn. It's still getting that brioche knitting that I was craving, but I'll get to see the colors next to each other instead of on front and back of the shawl. What do you think? Do you think I should use this in the jaunty, or should I use it for something else where I'll see the colors next to each other? My other idea altogether is to save it to knit up a colorwork sweater that I want to make from Marie Wallen's Aran book. It's full of colorwork sweaters in it, and I just have a dream of making an all hand-spun colorwork sweater, and maybe these colors could go towards that as well. Even though I'm trying to just use solid colors that I'm spinning up for it, but I do think this is solid enough where it wouldn't distract from the colorwork. The possibilities really are endless, aren't they? I can't remember if I announced this anywhere on this channel, but I am making 2026 the year of weaving for me. I have a floor loom, I have a lap loom, and I now have another loom that I'll show you in a bit here. But I just neglect my weaving. I think it's because all of those tools are out of sight, so I'm not really thinking about it. I have to keep my floor loom up in our bedroom because that's the only space that we really have for it. I never really think about weaving until I'm going to bed, and I'm usually too tired and just reading a book or something. But yeah, so this year I'm really trying to focus more on weaving. To help motivate myself to do that, I ended up buying a few different kits from Just Yarn, which is like a weaving yarn dedicated website. And the first project that I have on the loom is a pair of hand towels. I feel like hand towels are such a easy way to try out different techniques or patterns or yarns, and you can make like a sample size pretty much project, and it's something that you can end up using. I feel like you can never have too many hand towels, and I just love the idea of having handmade hand towels because they just look really pretty. I was drawn to these particular towels that I'm making, which are the seed pod towels designed by Amanda Ratage. And I like these because they are using the overshot technique, which is right now my favorite visual technique for weaving, and it's what I want to weave for like everything. I'm having a lot of fun weaving these up, and I really liked the colors that I chose. They're just like a really fresh, springy color, which again are just motivating me to weave more and working with these bright colors. I have a few other projects planned that I will show you as I get to them, but ultimately I am working my way up to a very ambitious, large weaving project that I want to start eventually once I finish these few other projects on the loom. I decided that I need new curtain panels, especially in my living room, because they're just a little too white for what I want. So I had this vision to weave my own overshot curtain panels, and I have 4 like really long windows in my living room, and I have really high ceilings as well. So these are going to be quite long curtain panels. And then I'm eventually going to move all of the curtains that I currently have in my living room out to my front porch. I'm thinking of keeping all 4 windows the same color scheme of curtains, but doing a slightly different overshot weaving pattern for each, so I don't get sick of making like 100 yards of the same weaving pattern. But we'll see if I even get around to that this year, because I really have a tendency of dressing the loom and then letting it sit for months without working on it. But I have to stay motivated because 2026 is the year of weaving, just like I said. Now you may be wondering what other weaving tool that I got was, and it's a very portable one. You grab it, it's just right back here. I ended up getting an inkle loom. And well, actually my mom bought me this for my birthday. It was on my birthday wish list that I totally forgot that I added this onto. So it was a really big surprise when I opened this up. A lot of you may be wondering, what on earth does this type of loom do? It's so tiny, and it makes very narrow like bands and straps. And it's amazing how many different things you could really make with this once you put your mind to it. So far, well, the first project I actually ever made just when I was practicing was a leash for my remote. This is definitely not an original idea to me. One of my really good friends told me about the idea for people who often lose their remote, which I don't lose the remote. I have a strict rule that it stays on the coffee table, but somehow that rule doesn't apply to others in this household. So I ended up making a long band as a leash that I tied to our tray on the coffee table. And guess what? We haven't lost the remote for like 2 months now. So I figured that was a very accomplished project that I made. And then the second thing that I ended up making with the inkle loom is bookmarks. I made one for myself here, and then I made 2 others for my friends. And I'm probably going to continue to make more bookmarks for all of my friends because they're so much fun to make. It's a relatively quick project. I could dress the inkle loom and probably weave the whole thing in a day, which really will take up most of the day for me. But it becomes really addicting to do. I think my next project on the inkle loom will be to make some dog collars for my 2 dogs. Not that they necessarily need any new collars, but I just think it'd be cute if they had some really colorful coordinating dress collars that they can wear for like special occasions or something. And then I'll just buy some hardware online to assemble the collar together. So as I've said, I've been like crafting a lot. I think that's been my way of like protecting my nervous system from just everything going on in the world. I've been reading a lot. I've been watching TV. I just finished Traders last night, which was very good. I even got to get away for a couple weekends this year so far. I went to my friend's cabin in January for just like a cozy weekend of knitting and crafting. And then I went on the same women's trip that I did last year up in Grammar, but this time we went up to Lutsak and it was so wonderful. And yeah, I have some other trips and little things planned for the rest of this year, which I'm really looking forward to. I hope to show up here more often. I want to try to post at least once a month at the bare minimum, because it's a lot easier for me to keep up with everything when it's not piling up so high. And I just really like sharing everything that I'm working with all of you. I hope you are having a safe and cozy first start of the year, and you are able to be with your loved ones and make all the things that you want to make. If you like what you see here, please consider giving it a thumbs up. That really helps me out. And if you're new here, welcome. Please consider subscribing and you won't miss out on any future content from me. In the meantime, I hope you are having a wonderful weekend, and we'll chat next time. Bye!